All right, well, thank you for joining me for the first episode of the Museum of Imperfect Inventions. I actually got started on this with a dream that I had where I was running a place called the Museum of Imperfect Inventions. True story. So I figured maybe I can't build a museum, but I definitely can create a YouTube channel. And that's what I've done. So thank you for joining me today. The first imperfect invention for today's episode is the Ford Pinto. The glorious Ford Pinto. The Ford Motor Company under President Lee Iacocca manufactured over 3 million Pintos from 1971 to 1980. Iacocca dictated that the car should weigh no more than 2,000 pounds and cost no more than $2,000. This subcompact car was created to compete with other subcompact vehicles of the era, namely the Toyota Corolla, Datsun 510, AMC Gremlin, and Chevy Vega. The Pinto was popular during the 1970s, largely due to its small size and lowered fuel consumption during the 1970s oil crisis, some of you may know of. The Pinto only had one minor flaw to it, though. The fuel tank was placed in the back of the car, such that if it was struck from behind by another vehicle at just the right speed, it would burst into flames. This resulted in from between 27 and 180 people being burnt to death and considerable legal action against the Ford Motor Company, including one criminal prosecution for reckless homicide and a total of 117 lawsuits that resulted in multi-million-dollar payouts for Ford, including what was at the time the largest product liability and personal injury fine in the United States history. One well-regarded theory promoted in a 1977 article by a gentleman named Mark Dowie for Mother Jones called Pinto Madness found that Ford knew the dangers of the gas tank placement resulted in the Pinto being a fire trap, but after doing a cost-benefit analysis decided that it would be cheaper to lobby politicians and settle lawsuits than to redesign the car. That seems like typical American capitalism to me. Ultimately, the Ford Pinto damaged the company's reputation and resulted in Ford recalling more than 1.5 million of the vehicles. By some estimates, the Pinto was actually average in terms of danger level for subcompact cars when compared to other similar cars of the age. Subcompact cars of the 70s and early 80s tended to be more dangerous than normal-sized vehicles of the era and lacked the safety features of today's small-sized automobiles. 1980 marked the end of the line for the Ford Pinto, though many of these small cars do still exist. The next imperfect invention is heroin. Heroin, the beat poet's best friend. You've heard of Bayer aspirin, but did you know that Bayer once produced heroin? That's right, Bayer heroin for that ache that you just can't seem to soothe. In the late 19th century, Bayer was the first pharmaceutical company to successfully synthesize heroin for commercial use. The intent was to create a cough-suppressant substance that was similar to morphine but non-addictive. Apparently that didn't go so well. Chemically named diacetylmorphine, the substance was sold over the counter starting in 1895 and trademarked with the name heroin as a non-addictive morphine substitute and cough suppressant. The 1910 Encyclopedia Britannica explained that for the cough caused by tuberculosis, quote, minute doses of morphine are of service, but in this particular disease, morphine is frequently better replaced by codeine or by heroin, which checks irritable coughs without the narcotics following up the administration of morphine. Just what the tuberculosis sufferer needs, a heroin addiction. So there's always that. Over-the-counter heroin did not last very long. Heroin was made a prescription drug in 1914 and made completely illegal in 1924. So obviously they could tell that it had certain dangers to it early on. Prohibition of any substance never seems to work, though, because whenever there's a demand, there always seems to be someone who's willing to supply a popular commodity. That's capitalism too. Countless individuals, particularly artists, poets, and musicians, have gotten hooked on and frequently died from this highly addictive substance. Heroin production and trafficking has continued in the United States, where over 100,000 people died between April of 2020 and April of 2021 from opioids in general, including heroin, prescription opioids, and fentanyl. That's more than gun and vehicle collision deaths combined for the year 2020. Opium poppy production in Afghanistan, one of the primary producers of the flowers used to synthesize heroin, is at an all-time high. Heroin and other opioids remain popular in the US and other countries despite their often deadly effects. Harm-reducing public health measures have been enacted in many states in the U.S. for opioid addiction sufferers, including methadone prescriptions and needle exchanges. But many states still take a zero-tolerance policy approach to substance abuse issues and attempt to incarcerate their way out of the problem. This has resulted in mass incarceration for nonviolent drug addicts and a dearth of social supports for those trying to get clean and kick the habit. Not many insurance companies cover rehabilitation, leaving addiction sufferers with few alternatives or means to help them overcome addiction. The future of this substance and the destruction that it causes society is not known, but if governmental policies on illegal substances don't change, there's no reason to believe that heroin addiction rates will decrease anytime soon. And so our last imperfect invention for today is the Spork, the humble Spork. Is the Spork truly an imperfect invention? You can't use it to scoop liquids, and I wouldn't use it to eat turkey or steak. On the other hand, it could be used to eat mashed potatoes and chunky soup. Spork-like designs were patented all the way back in 1874, and the first patent to call it a spork was Broad Milling Company. Kentucky Fried Chicken was the first restaurant to offer it to customers. Sporks are used worldwide by school cafeterias, airlines, outdoor people on hikes and picnics, the military, fast food restaurants, and prisons. I wonder if a spork's ever been made into a shank, like a prison shank. Probably, unfortunately. It's a kind of dog-eat-dog in the prisons right now. One British company, Life Venture, sells a titanium spork. I've always thought sporks were a funny invention. It's not quite a fork, but it's not quite a spoon. My childhood friend had a song called Stabbed to Death by a Purple Spork. I wonder how many spork-related injuries there are each year. Well, I guess that's about it for sporks. Thank you very much for watching today, and I appreciate your viewing. Please like and subscribe for more, and I'll keep creating content. Have a great day.